You know what's interesting? You bringing it up because I kind of come from like two schools of thought, right? Like me personally, yeah, I want to be able to provide for my family, but I also want to love what I'm doing. Like that's just my generation. Our
Absolutely.
generation.
Yeah.
At the same time, I grew up with my grandfather. My grandfather spent almost 25, 30 years working for CDCR.
Yeah.
So much so now that he's retired, his benefits are like out of this world. His pension out of this world. He's able to have a home not only for him and my grandma to stay in, but he's been able to provide a place for the rest of his family to stay and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when I look at what he did, the sacrifices he made all those years, and then him being able to reap those benefits on the back end, I look at it like that, and I think about like what you're saying. Because I always try to look at situations like all the way around, like
For sure.
from my perspective and like what it'd be for somebody else's.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like my grandpa comes from the era of you do what you have to do to get to do what you want to do. And so seeing that like him like my grandma's had like a lot of surgeries later in life. She had to have a major surgery. She had a kidney transplant. She had all these different things. And like they didn't have to pay a cent.
Wow.
And it's just like that's because of the sacrifices that, you know, my grandfather had made. And so it's just like, okay, do I think that my grandpa maybe had dreams to, I don't know, he wanted to be a teacher, he wanted to be a coach, he wanted to do all these different things. Yes, I do think that I haven't had a chance to talk to him about it, but at the same time, I think a part of his fulfillment as a man and as a father is like I'm able and was able to provide for my daughters and their
Absolutely.
children and their children's children.
Yeah.
And I don't have to worry about anything for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think my biggest question, even in the midst of us having our dreams, is are we chasing just the dream or are we chasing fulfillment? Because it's like, and this is just a question I ask myself, is it's like, and like you were saying before, Don, like where you have to kind of check your heart and check your motives and see where you're at, is like, okay, what ultimately is going to fulfill me? Like, is it the dream or is it what the dream is going to bring me? Because if the dream is, for instance, I want to go to the NFL so I can be financially free and set my family up forever. Okay, your dream is to make sure that you provide for your family.
Right.
Or your fulfillment is that you provide for your family.
Right.
But that dream is the vehicle in which you get there. You know what I'm saying? So that's like the questions that I ask myself is like, okay, a part of this dream, Lord, okay, where is this taking me? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, you gotta kind of get that answer to that when you look at the story of Joseph, right? Because we meet Joseph when he's young. He's the youngest of all his brothers. The fact that he's the favorite kind of gives you kind of a tale as to maybe where he was, what his mentality was. Maybe he had a sense of entitlement a little bit, and here it is. God gives him this dream. So he like, on one end is like, okay, this dude is close enough to God to where he knows who God is, and he knows that God has communicated with him in this awesome way, right? But on the flip side of that, some poor parental practices have created this dynamic of contention between him and his siblings, right? And so here it is, like when we meet him and we find out about this great dream that he has, and he's going around telling everybody. I honestly believe that his heart emotionally, he was connected to the outcome of what it was. He was in love with the dream and not necessarily what the purpose was in that dream, right? And so we end up literally, as we read his story, we see the journey of God basically stripping from him this sense of entitlement, this sense of being so in love with what the office and the position that he's being called to, as opposed to him loving the purpose in which God has placed this in his hands. You know what I'm saying? And so when we get to the end of his story, we see, oh wow, he went through all of this, and he sees the reason that he went through all of this was not because he deserved to be in this position,
right,
or that he had earned being in this position, but it was God's plan the whole time for the saving of many lives, right? That which translates that God did this and placed me in this position of power for service, right? He put me in this position, in this place for service, and I think for us, each and every one of us being the leader, right?
Wow.
Being the one that's in charge of our own households, right? Being in charge of these businesses and these business ventures that God has placed in our hands, that it's not for us to be better than our competitors or to be the number one in our industry, right? If we end up achieving that, great. That's awesome.
Right.
But at the end of the day, he placed it in our hands so we could serve him and serve others with it, right? At the end of the day, I'm asking myself, like, when it goes to the lives, I'm asking myself, okay, am I doing this to serve me? Am I like trying to jump in the race of trying to be another viral or another public figure? You know what I'm saying? Am I doing this to get a blue check so people I can feel like I'm validated? Or am I doing this because, you know what, I want to serve God by sharing with others what it is that he's like revealed to me personally, and that it would be a blessing to those that come across it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I think more so that's where you're getting at, JR, with the fact of am I in love with the dream, or am I really in love with the purpose that I've been given this dream for?
Because like I'm sitting there like listening you talk about like encouraging people on like a daily basis, right? It ultimately is for the person that's on the other end to come to a deeper knowledge of who God is. It's like it's not just to make you feel good for the day. Like hopefully day after day, nugget after nugget, seed after seed, it leads you back to connection with God. Because it's like, hey, I'm not making this stuff up as I go. Like I'm getting this from Scripture. I'm rooted in a firm foundation. And I was thinking, like as you were talking, like if you look at the different seasons of Joseph's life in Genesis, where, dude, when he was a slave, he got made into a leader in that season. When he got put in jail, he got made into a leader in that season. Like, dude, where God had called him to was like traveled with him throughout like all these different things. Yes, he was humbled. He thought, hey, y'all are going to bow down to me. Even mom and dad are going to bow down to me. And it's like, all right, bet, watch this. And you go through all that. You go from thinking that you're going to be the king of kings and then get humbled to be a slave, even though you didn't do anything. Then you get thrown into jail falsely, and then you finally get elevated into a place. And ultimately, it's like where God led you to do it. I want to ask you guys a question, and I appreciate that you had said this, Donald, about the whole encouragement point and what you do every day. Is one of the things that we've been talking about at Elevate over the past couple of weeks, and kind of what we're kind of going to as a church as far as like evangelism goes, is for us as Christians and as business owners, as people that have a platform, is the Great Commission a side quest? And here's why I asked this question. I think a lot of times people kind of overlook the point of the Great Commission of like going therefore and making disciples, leading people to God, leading people to Jesus, and think like, okay, I'm a business owner first, I'm gonna be successful, and then I'm gonna lead people to Jesus. Like, do you guys feel like it's just a side mission, or does it need to be ingrained within like our main mission of our businesses, our platforms, stuff like that?
A side mission for me, I think it could be woven into what you do. Like if that's who you are, I feel like at some point it will come out. Like I don't know, and this actually makes me interested to even look into it a little deeper. But I feel like, all right, so in regards to say even Ergo, right? For me, as I'm going back and I'm working on this message and finding out, okay, what is my message? Because a lot of it lately for me has been a heart check. Like, what is the arrow that I really want to You know what I mean? That I really want to send out, you know? And for me, it came back to in the times where I'm discouraged and I'm getting all these negative comments and people beat me down. Like, if I don't have a firm foundation, then the building is going to fall. I'm not going to be able to stay consistent. You feel me? With putting this message out there. And at the end of the day, what I just came to, this was probably about a month ago as I was praying about it, was like, bruh, this is good news. You know what I mean? Like, share the good news of Ergo, you know? And I feel like in that, it's given me a new heart with how I'm supposed to communicate to the people that I'm reaching out to. Like, it's a message of not just, it's not just me out here trying to get money, but it's going to ultimately be about grace. You know what I mean? And showing people what it looks like to give their dogs grace, right? But I'm saying it to say because for me, like, that's ultimately where my heart is at. And I feel like it's going to come out, and I'm trying to flesh it out and find that. So anyways, I don't think that it's a side thing. I think that God ends up using whatever it is that you do, you know, and you partner with God to do that. And even in regards to barbering, you know what I mean? Like, for me, it's way more than just a haircut, the conversations that I'm having with people in the chair. But then I do think that there's also an aspect of being intentional about it too, you know, and having to be intentional and partnering with God on that. So, yeah, that's my piece.
I think so. The Great Commission, when I think of Great Commission, I think of the sharing of the gospel, the sharing of God's word. Like, all of it's the good news, right? Everything from the first page to the last page. And so, like, in hearing you just describe, like, what your aim is to do with Ergo Leash, about, like, who talks about giving grace to their dogs or to their, but Proverbs tells us that the righteous and the godly love their animals. You know what I'm saying? So you're fulfilling the Great Commission. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're like, you're being an example of God's goodness and what it means to be righteous. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? In his word. The same thing with you, JR, like with you know, Butcher Media Design, like you want to help you want to help them tell their story, right, or share their story, and that's by revealing the beauty that's in their story, right. All of creation is waiting for the beauty and the glory of God to be revealed. Like, so that's a way of doing it. And it's funny that you bring up that question, because recently I've been reading one of the devotionals that I like to visit every so often with C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis, I believe, is one of the greatest examples that we have of someone who was a man of God, but, like, operated like he's looked at as one of the greatest writers of the 20th century.
His gift for sure made room for him.
Yeah. And so the thing was, it wasn't like he set out to be like, okay, I'm gonna put a fish in every one of my books so that people know that I'm a Christian. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. He's not, because he's not like, oh, I'm a Christian author, right? It was just, he was an author, he was a writer, and people knew that he was a Christ follower because he revealed that in his work, in his stories. He didn't lock himself up in a room and say, okay, all right, so how can I create an allegory that's going to fit this demographic and is going to explain to them that Jesus Christ is Lord? Is like, he didn't do that. He was like, all right, let me see what it is that God has shown me. Like, when you look at it, because they explained, like, he explained in an interview how he came up with the story that, you know, that we know of, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Chronicles of Narnia, right? And he said he didn't start off with Aslan. He didn't think of Aslan, okay, even though the whole story is centered around Aslan and the land that he created. He said the story was God had showed him at 16 years old, gave him this picture in his mind of a fawn who was carrying some parcels and was standing under a light post. And that was it. And when he was like 40-something years old, he was like, okay, let me see how I can turn this picture into a story. And he got the Chronicles of Narnia. And he said, and once Aslan, the lion, right, who is the Christ figure in the story, comes in, it pulled the whole story together. Wow. And that's what, like, I feel like it's the same thing with us. It's like, our gifts come without repentance. Yeah. He had the gift to write he was writing dope stories before he even came into a relationship with Christ. And so all it does is just enhances that. It enhances our purpose and our desire to be good at what it is that we're doing, to be excellent at what is good. And eventually what'll end up happening is just people will be able to see the fruit. It'll like, I don't know how to say it. It permeates out of what it is that we do, that we are doing this not just for ourselves, but we're doing it for the glory of God.
Yeah.
And so I honestly think that Colossians 3, I think it's Colossians 3:16 and 17, where it talks about let the word of God richly dwell in you, and that it'll come out in whatever it is that you do.
Exactly.
So I think that's all we need to focus on. Is we focus on, like you said, spending our quality time where, we may be in times of relaxation and downtime, but that we don't neglect the source that gives us life, right? That we don't neglect the relationship that we have with the Lord, and that it's Him who gave us everything, whether it's the dream, whether it's the ability, whether it's the talents, whatever it is, He's given that to us. And as long as we don't lose sight of that and we think that it's of ourselves,
Right.
then we don't have to worry about,
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think like another great example of that, shouts out to, but like Big Co, you feel me? Like he's playing football, you know? And when he came on here and we had him on the podcast, he's like, man, I just want God to get all the glory. You know what I mean? Ultimately, I think that goes to show, and even his character and how like coaches are seeing his character, and I'm sure that word is traveling. You know what I mean? But that in itself, he's able to be a witness in being an athlete. You know what I mean? So I think ultimately it doesn't really matter what it is that you do, as long as you're turning around and you're giving that glory to God and you're connected to Him, because that can just unfold as your skill, as your gift, as your talent, as whatever it is continues to blossom. I think it will ultimately be revealed. Like, oh man, that dude is a believer. That writer, you feel me? He's a Christ follower, you know, or I didn't even know, but that guy in that dog company or Butcher Media Design, oh yeah, and it's good, and they do good business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so
because that like you said, doing good business in and of itself, doing good business, God hates an unjust scale. Right, where you just cheating and you just like trying to
Conniving.
He don't like that. He don't like people trying to just constantly get over, and just doing good business.
Yeah.
Because you like, man, God bless me to be able to do this, and I'm gonna do good business. I'm gonna do it as good as it can be done.
Yeah.
That is in itself is a testament of His goodness.
Yeah.
Right. Every good and perfect gift comes from God. So everything good comes from Him.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing good that wasn't made by Him. And so if we're doing what we do and we're good at what we're doing, that gives God glory.
Yeah.
It's not the fact that we slap Jesus label on it.
Yeah.
Right? That's by people seeing our good works, they give it gives God glory. Right? Let your works so shine before men so that they may see, or let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who's in heaven. That's what it boils down to. It's not about so much us, preaching a 10-point sermon or whatever the case may be, but it's just the fact of us. It's more so about us living about it. Don't talk about it, walk about it. You know what I'm saying? That's what it boils down to. It's funny that you brought up about Cole, because it is. The way, one of the things that blessed me as his dad was recently in a conversation. He's like, "Is it a sin not to go to church? Like, is it a sin?" Because he's like, "Because I'm gonna be playing on Sundays," and he's like, "We usually go to church on Sundays."
You got chaplains.
And that's what I was saying. And I was like, man, but what it was like, obviously what that showed me was that in his mind, the question has come up is, does this mean more to me? What it is that I'm doing, does what I love that I'm doing mean more to me than me honoring God?
Yeah.
Which I was like, I was juiced to know that he was even contemplating that and thinking about that. And of course, we had the conversation and stuff, and we just explained like, man, there's a lot of ways to, because he's like, okay, what about serving? He's like, I know I make money and I'll give, but like, what about serving? How do I serve God?
How am I supposed to do broadcast?
Right, yeah. He's like, how do I? Yeah, basically. And I'm like, dude, man, God's gonna show you all that when you get to where it is that you need to go. You know what I'm saying? Understand
Seasons.
that. But it's just awesome, man, just to be able to have a privilege to do whatever it is that you do. Like, you brought up the fact that there's individuals who work jobs that they don't necessarily enjoy doing and everything. And I think while that is true, because I think every job, even in your dream job, right? In your dream job, there's that part that's like the pay the bills, like not so fun part. whether it be the fact that you gotta
accounting,
do all the taxes and the accounting, you know what I'm saying, inventory, all that kind of stuff. The stuff that's like really not sexy. but I think it's a matter of your perspective. Again, like looking at that Joseph situation, like Joseph. I don't think that when he was in Potiphar's house, right, and he's a slave in Potiphar's house, that every day was just miserable. I think that when he learned that he was like, okay, I'm gonna be a servant, you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna be the best servant, and he gets elevated to the leader of all the servants. Like, there was a point where he was like, his heart of service helped him change the perspective that he had on where he was. And I think that's what it is for us, is that if we take on the role of a servant and figure out, okay, how can I serve where I am at, right? I think Spurgeon said, whether you're a gatekeeper, serve there. Whether you sit on the king's throne, serve there. But don't wish to be a gatekeeper or a king, just wish to be a servant.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can learn to have a heart of service, man, like think about this, man. A servant usually has access to every part of the palace or the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about it, because they're needed in all of those areas. Though that might not be their bedroom, but they have access to that bedroom, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're a pleasing servant, it's only a matter of time before you're a good servant. It's only a matter of time before you're elevated. You know what I'm saying? You wield more power as a servant than what meets the eye. Right? You're privy to information and hearing things. There's dudes that have become CEOs because they started out as janitors and custodians in Fortune 500 places, and it was because they stumbled across some information in the midst of their service that they were able to get the information that they needed that elevated them to the next level.
Absolutely. One of my favorite things to see in the NFL is to see like great coaches coaching trees. Like, you'll go back, like one of my favorite coaches of all time, Go Niners, is Bill Walsh. But if you look at Bill Walsh's coaching tree, the coaches that came out of like his football kid coaches, you know what I'm saying, went out and won their own Super Bowls, went out and were successful on their own. And it's kind of interesting to see like the people that like you don't think that are anything right now ultimately become something great like later down the line because of where they've been and the mindset that they have and like how they, like you're saying, how they served. Like, it might not be in the same context, like, well, it's not within the church, but it's like, no, your heart of service can go everywhere. Like, yeah, you're working at Les Schwab, yeah, you're working at Walmart, yeah, whatever, but still have that heart of service, and you'd be surprised what doors open up because you are genuinely serving, because you're trying not to just honor your manager or honor the person that's over you, but you're honoring God in the way that you're doing it.
Imagine how you feel when you go to a restaurant, right? Wow. And there's a server. You go to a restaurant and there's a server, and you never have to ask for your glass to be filled. You never have to ask, like the service is so great that like they're so proactive in making sure that you have an exquisite experience, right? And so think about the restaurant owner, right? The restaurant owner is not going to have service like that if they're just hiring somebody to serve that just needs a job, right? But they see somebody and they're like, man, you really like helping people, right? You really like, you have a pleasant attitude. You're very a people person. That's what kind of person I'm looking for, and they hire that kind of person to be a server in their restaurant. And what do you think? What do you think that your response is going to be to that kind of person? Like, you don't know that person from you know, the your next door neighbor. You don't know that person, but this person is waiting on you. They're waiting well on you. They're doing all these things, and it provokes you to not just tip them, but to tip them well. Like you share your treasure with them.
Right.
This person that you don't know because they've connected with you because of how their level of service is at an excellent level. And I think that's how it is for us as servants as well. Like if we learn to serve well, if we serve proactively, not waiting for somebody to say, hey, can I get another glass of, or can, you know what I'm saying? But I'm keeping a watchful eye and like just meeting a need. Like my heart is to meet a need. That it's only a matter of time before you receive treasure. Right? It's only a matter of time before someone shares their treasure with you. And I think service is what the key is in everything that we do.
I agree.
Bruh, you have me thinking.
I
so
agree.
like, yeah, I'm thinking back. Remember a couple of New Year's days ago when we went to Mel's?
Yeah.
I had such secondhand embarrassment for this lady because Donald was giving her the hardest time, bro, over some eggs, and rightfully so. They kept messing it up.
Yeah.
But the only reason why I bring that up, like if you compare like a diner experience to a fine dining experience, a couple years ago, I was able to take my wife. We went on vacation. We went to like a fine dining restaurant, right? And I wasn't like, okay, I had food I never had before, sure. But it was more so the experience that I had than the actual food. Because like, not only did the guy that was serving us say, you know, what do you want to eat? It was more so like, what do you usually eat? Because then I can help you and navigate you into what you want to eat. Hey, just so you know, you don't have to order all this stuff. You could just do this. We can set you up. And I'm like, I felt like I had like a tailored service for that. Now, mind you, that bill was a lot different than like a diner experience.
Yeah.
But I think it's built into the system. Like whoever owns that restaurant is like, because we provide such excellent service, because our standard is like we're serving at the highest standard, we're going to add that value to it. Because I'm pretty sure the markup on the food is probably crazy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're like, no, we want to make sure that, the people that are serving are taken care of too. And I'm just like, you can see that difference between somebody that is just there and like, oh, I'm only here so I can earn the minimum, and people that are there because, okay, I'm making a little bit more money because of the level of service that I can provide.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Servant. Be a servant.
You got to, man. That's what he said. That's the greatest in the kingdom is a servant of all.
Yep.
And I mean, what better example do we have other than Jesus? Because he said, "I came to serve and not be served." You know what I'm saying? And that's he's the greatest leader. You know what I'm saying? Greatest leader. He endured with patience. He endured betrayal. He endured all of it, all of the things that we have the possibility of experiencing in leadership ourselves.
That's crazy.
And he handled it well. And he's our perfect example.
Yep.
So on that note,
Christ is my firm foundation.
Jesus Christ!
I love you, God.
Of course.
No, man, that's gonna be it for another episode of Watch Me Develop. Once again, I am your host, Don the Baptist, aka The Joke. 94585, because 707 ain't specific enough. With my boy Stephen Joshua Bonds and my brother cousin John Butcher Jr. Man, we bid you adieu. Y'all know what it is. Develop or die. End quote. Repeat the line. We'll see y'all next time.
Season 2.